What is AOC gonna do? I know that you saw that reporting coming out that she's considering for 2028, possibly running for the Senate against Chuck Schumer, in which she's polling really well, possibly running in the Democratic primary. I've given my thoughts about that, but like, what does the polling show? How would she do? It's a couple of years out, but she's a much more known quantity than she was just 5 years ago. So let's jump now to a little bit of what the polling actually shows about how she might do if she were to run for these things, starting with president.
Back in June of 2014, look, Hillary Clinton was way ahead of everybody with 69%. Bernie Sanders was like in 9th or 10th place with just 2%. Look at where we are right now in September of 2025. Look how much closer AOC is to the top now than Bernie Sanders was back a decade ago. She's at 12%, so she has 6 times his amount of support. But more than that, look how much closer she is to the leader. Gavin Newsom leads the field right now, but just with 21%. She is within 10 points of Gavin Newsom. If you want an outsider, this is your time. This is your time. This is not what we were looking at a decade ago. Get this, 62% of Democrats say their party leaders should be replaced compared to just 24% who say no. You go back at the beginning of the Donald Trump presidency, the majority of Democrats said their party leaders were taking the party in the right direction. That is not the case anymore.
Bear in mind, back in that the lower one he was talking about, there already was a majority of the Democrats who wanted their leadership to be replaced. But that means that now there's been the better part of a decade where we've just been like, can we try something new, anything new, anyone new? Can we try anything? And what have we had in the last decade? Chuck Schumer's been around since the 1840s. Hakeem Jeffries, I guess, is a little bit more new, at least in terms of being top leadership, but he's certainly not bringing a new perspective. I don't know what he's done that would be different than if it was just Nancy Pelosi still. We had Clinton as a candidate who, again, has been around for about 75 years. Then we got Biden. Then we got Biden and Harris, who basically ran as if she was Biden, but awake. And she was better. I agree. She was better than Biden. She was better than Clinton. But like, are we ever going to go in a new direction? The Republicans have. Not a productive one necessarily, but it has worked for them electorally to try something new, to at least pretend in an incredibly dishonest way to actually care about regular working people, to be opposed to the economic status quo. I mean, all of it was a fiction. They were lying, but even the lie worked. Imagine if it was real. Like, imagine if you went with something new. And look, Gavin Newsom, so I'm comparing like the 2015 or 2014 to Gavin Newsom now. So Hillary Clinton was far and away more of a front runner than Gavin Newsom can claim to be. Gavin Newsom has the issue that there are a number of other Democratic governors that are kind of Newsom-esque. I think that he's the best known. I think that he's of like, if I'm throwing out like, like some of these other Democratic, like Pritzker and stuff like that. I think that he's Shapiro. He's better known. I think he's a little bit better of a communicator. He knows how to advertise. He knows how to fight. That will help him. And I think that he's quite a bit better at that than Hillary Clinton was. I think that he's a little bit more natural in interacting with people, the advertisements and all of that. But he's like 40 points behind where Clinton was. AOC, on the other hand, is better known now than I think Sanders was for most regular Americans at that point. Now, Sanders, of course, had 2015, which was absolutely massive for him. I look back with fondness on that time a lot. It's not impossible that AOC could have a similar thing like that. And of course, the race is not gonna be just them two, which to some extent that kind of was how Clinton and Sanders was. There's gonna be a whole lot of other establishment Democrats. There might well be a number of other progressives. And so that really affects things, Is Buttigieg gonna take a bunch of the support away from Newsom that he might otherwise get? Remember in 2020, Buttigieg pulled out right before Super Tuesday to help Biden lock that thing down. Does he pull out earlier this time, or does he think he can go the distance against Gavin Newsom? Like, that strategy is really gonna determine a lot of this, but AOC is in a much better position, at least to start, than Bernie Sanders was. I don't think that she has only advantages over Bernie Sanders, but she's raising a lot of money, good communicator, very good on social media. And hopefully, if she were to run, she would also have the Sanders factor on her side. So that is definitely helpful. Let's just really fast, let's also not rule out the possibility of a Senate run. Let's go to that Harry Enten clip. We'll end with that.
She is running 30 points ahead of Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the United States Senate, among her and his constituents here in the state of New York. My goodness gracious, what we are talking about is if Ocasio-Cortez decides, you know what, I don't want to run for president, I want to challenge Chuck Schumer in a 2028 Democratic primary for United States Senate, these numbers suggest that that primary challenge could be very, very real. And a lot of the numbers I'm seeing right now suggest she would actually be a favorite at this point if she in fact decides to take on Chuck Schumer. Again, this is a guy who was first elected to the United States Senate back in 1998, and now she's got a real chance to knock him off. What we're talking about is new days are here.
I think it's very strange how he says the years like that. Anyway, I like him. I'm very critical, but I like him. So look, it is going to be difficult, I think, to look at polling like that, particularly if it holds out. And I don't really see why Chuck Schumer would become more popular in the next year and a half or whatever. And be like, I'd basically be a lock to join the Senate rather than just entering into the scrum of the Democratic primary for the president. But there's a lot more upside to the president. Even if you don't win, there's potentially a lot of upside. So look, I'm not gonna be mad at her if she just decides to run for Senate. That is very significant. But since we can't know for sure, I just wanna end on one note. Mamdani looks like a lock now to win this thing. He was supposed to, he's a super radical. He's been attacked by everybody. The Democrats don't even support him, and yet he is running away with this thing. AOC is strikingly more popular than Chuck Schumer. At a certain point, is it almost bordering on defamation for the media to continually imply that these are divisive figures, that these are radicals? Or is it at a certain point that allowing the leadership to be flooded with far less popular figures, maybe that's what's divisive? Maybe they're the extremists. It's not extreme towards the far left or whatever, but in terms of being slavishly pro-corporate, at a certain point, I understand the media is bought and sold, but they're wildly popular. Why is that never reflected in the way that we talk about these things? And that's been going on for a really long time. Remember, Bernie Sanders has for a long time been one of the most popular senators among his own constituents, and yet he has always been treated by the national media as some sort of divisive figure. It's very strange how that works out.
If you enjoyed that, then make sure that you never miss another video by subscribing. And if you want a little more, consider hitting the join button and becoming a member. So you're probably wondering, why would I do that? Well, when you do that, you get access to bonus content that I make every single week, and it's a lot of fun. You get custom emojis and more. If you join at tier 3, by the way, you even get access to a monthly member hangout with myself. And you'll get all that going forward, but you'll also unlock years of the back catalog that is literally 100 or more bonus clips and top 10 lists and debates and more. So what are you waiting for?